before electricity, before petroleum. The light in most homes on Earth came from one animal's head. Then we found something cheaper. That's the only reason it's still alive. The sperm whale carries the largest brain of any animal that has ever existed on this planet. Larger than any dinosaur, larger than any other whale, larger than anything that came before or after it. It can dive past 2,000 meters and hold its breath for over 90 minutes, hunting giant squid in total darkness using sound alone. And inside its head, taking up roughly a third of its entire body length, is a reservoir of liquid wax called spermaceti. Nobody fully understands why the sperm whale evolved this organ. Some researchers believe it helps with buoyancy control during deep dives. Others think it shapes the sound waves the whale uses to hunt. What humans understood almost immediately was simpler. It burned bright, and it burned clean. For most of the 18th and 19th centuries, if you wanted light after dark, there was a good chance a whale paid for it. Spermaceti candles burned with almost no smoke and almost no smell, a level of quality nothing else on the market could match. They became so reliable as a light source that a single spermaceti candle was used to define an entire unit of measurement. Candle power, adopted internationally in the 1880s as the global standard for light intensity. Benjamin Franklin reportedly preferred reading by spermaceti candlelight. Spermaceti had another property that made it valuable far beyond lighting. Unlike most oils, it didn't thicken or freeze in cold conditions, which made it the lubricant of choice for delicate, fast-moving machinery. Clocks, sewing machines, precision instruments at the heart of the Industrial Revolution. Whale oil, the cruder product extracted from blubber, lit street lamps and lighthouses across entire cities. Baleen, the comb-like structures whales use to filter food, was stripped out and reshaped into corsets, parasol ribs, and buggy whips. There was barely a part of the animal that didn't become a commodity. By the mid-19th century, whaling had become one of the largest industries in the United States. At its peak, the fifth largest sector of the entire American economy. New Bedford, Massachusetts became the center of it. At its height, it was the richest city per capita in the entire country. Its wealth built almost entirely on the oil and bone of a single species. A local newspaper in 1854 called it the center of the whaling universe. This wasn't a coastal trade. Whaling ships left port for 3 to 4 years at a time, hunting across every ocean on Earth, the Pacific, the Atlantic, the Arctic, in pursuit of an animal that grew harder and harder to find. When sperm whales couldn't be located, crews fell back on whatever whale they could catch, captains coining the phrase, "Brown oil is better than no oil." It was, by most measures, one of the first truly globalized industries in human history, organized entirely around finding and killing one animal to light the lamps of another species that had no idea how dangerous that demand was about to become. The right whale was the first species to feel the full weight of that demand. It earned its name for a brutally simple reason. It was the right whale to hunt, slow-moving, easy to approach, and unlike most whales, it floated to the surface after being killed instead of sinking, making it far easier to tow back to shore and process. Being convenient to kill turned out to be a death sentence. By the early 1900s, the North Atlantic right whale had been hunted to the edge of extinction. Sperm whales were next. As populations thinned, ships had to travel further and stay out longer to fill their holds, and even then, increasingly returned with less than a full load. The industry didn't slow down because the whales were disappearing. It just sailed further to find the ones that were left. Here's the part of the story that doesn't fit the usual narrative. By the late 1850s, before anyone had successfully drilled for oil in Pennsylvania, the whaling industry was already collapsing under its own weight. Sperm oil imports into the United States had fallen by half in just 15 years, from 5.3 million gallons in 1843 down to 2.6 million gallons in 1858. The whales weren't running out because of bad luck. They were running out because the industry had been hunting them faster than they could reproduce. Then, in 1859, Edwin Drake successfully drilled the first commercial oil well in Pennsylvania. Kerosene, refined from petroleum, burned almost as cleanly as spermaceti and could be produced at a fraction of the cost without sending a ship across 3 oceans for 4 years. Within a few years, kerosene had replaced whale oil even in America's lighthouses, the last and most demanding application that had clung to it. The market for whale oil didn't collapse because of new conservation laws or a sudden change of conscience. It collapsed because something cheaper showed up at exactly the moment the whales were running out anyway. Nobody saved the whale. Petroleum just turned out to be more profitable. The whale survived an extinction-level industry not because of compassion, but because of an oil rig in Pennsylvania that had nothing to do with whales at all. Commercial whaling didn't disappear overnight. Smaller-scale hunting for other products continued well into the 20th century until international agreements gradually restricted and then banned most commercial whaling by the 1980s. Some populations have slowly recovered in the decades since. Others have not. The North Atlantic right whale, the species whose name was a death warrant, remains critically endangered today, with fewer than 400 individuals left in the wild. For most of the 19th century, light itself had a body count. The whale didn't survive because humanity decided it mattered. It survived because something else became cheaper first. That's not a rescue. That's a coincidence we happen to benefit from.